I just finished watching a video of another American sister, in her words, crashing out over the idea that a state legislator wants to change the language in the state legislation. She didn't say which state, from mother to inseminated person. And the amount of anger and volatility, to the point that she like cursed and bleeped it out of her video, that the sister had, genuinely disappointed me and was so disheartening. Like, it genuinely made me so upset. And I know that this is something that upsets other other Muslims in America. This is, a lot of them feel the same way that this sister does, and it genuinely makes me so sad that other Muslims are so angry about inclusivity in legislation. And she went on to say in this video, would you call your mother an inseminated person, or your grandmother, or your daughter, if she gets pregnant, an inseminated person? No, because there's a difference between legal language, legislative language, and the common language. Common language is used, common language is emotional. Common language is connective. It's simple. It's what we use to communicate with the people around us. Legislative language is supposed to be very strict, very clear, very broken down, so that it is very straightforward as to who it's talking about. There's no interpretation, no way to misinterpret who this legislation is talking about, who this legal language is talking about. It is so important that legislative language and legal language, these things, be the way that they are, even if it doesn't make sense in common language. And there needs to be, in legal language, a division between what the idea of a mother is and what the idea of an inseminated person or a birthing person or whatever is, because in society there is a difference. Because not every single person who gets pregnant, inseminated, not every single person who gives birth becomes a mother. And not every single mother is somebody who has been inseminated and given birth. And we know this because we have surrogates. We have people who get adopted. This is part of society. So our legal language needs to reflect that. And regardless of what, you gave your baby up for adoption, but you'll always be its mother, whatever that's your own personal belief. Not everybody sees it that way. And legal language needs to reflect it in the most straightforward and strict way. And at one point in the video, she brought up the religious aspect. Does it say that in the Quran? Does it say it in the Bible? Does it say it and she couldn't remember the Torah and Talmud. But she was like, does it say in any of those religious books that it's not part of our religion? This is not a religious country. We need to remember that regardless of how you feel about how a country's laws and legislations, how the world should be run, that in America, the laws and legislation is built outside of religion and should be built outside of religion. It was intended to be built outside of religion. It is in the Constitution, the separation between church and state. That is the laws of this land. And regardless as to how you feel about it, that is what this country is built on. That is what the laws are built on. And in my opinion, that is how they should continue to be, even though a lot of people and politicians want to change that. I believe that this country should continue to make legislation outside of religion. Because, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for what I just said, but it's because human beings have free will. One of the greatest gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with, the rarest gift, right, is free will. We, even as Muslims, every single day choose to be Muslim, right? We make that choice. It's not something that's forced upon us. People choose not to be Muslims. There are some people whose hearts are closed off before they even enter this life. Their hearts are closed off to the word of God, right? But we still have free will, to the point of people are going to choose not to be religious. People are going to choose not to be Muslim. People are going to choose to do things that we consider sinful, things that we consider wrong, live their life in ways that we do not agree with. But it is their gift to do it as they please. It is not our job to force any sort of beliefs onto anybody. Yes, we can teach our beliefs to people. We can pray that they find the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can, share what we believe in the hopes of bringing more hearts to this path. But it is not our job, especially as Muslims, to force it upon anybody. There needs to be a place in this world for people to live their lives without the idea of people using religion in a wrong way, which we see in some other countries, to oppress them for their own beliefs. People should be allowed to live their lives. People should be allowed to, make their own choices without the government dictating how they present themselves, how they live their lives, etc. As long as what they're doing is not hurting anybody else, why does it matter? Why does it matter to you? Oh, well, they're influencing the children. Do you think that some stranger on the internet is going to influence your child more than you are? And if you are letting that happen, then that is a fault of yourself and not a fault of society or a fault of that other person. You are not doing your due diligence as a parent, as a community member, whatever, to make sure that the children around you are being influenced in the proper way. There are temptations, there are sins, there are all of this that have existed throughout time. This is not something new. Yeah, there's a lot more out there. You could have more access to it because of the internet, but allowing other people to live their lives, allowing legal language to encapsulate in the most inclusive and straightforward and strict definition of things is not going to lead your child off of the path of Islam. Is not going to lead society off of the path of Islam. It is just making a space for all the other humans that exist. And there is a multitude of other humans that exist outside of Muslims. Yes, we are a large majority of the religious communities in the world. But other people exist, and it's okay for them to exist, and it's okay for legislation to make a spot for those people, because legislation is not, in America, it is not religion. Legislation is make sure that things run properly in the most basic sense possible. Like, I don't want to sit here and ramble about this. It's just, the idea of hating people outside of the Muslim community for living their lives is genuinely just something that gets to me so much, because people exist, and people exist, and we know that people who are never going to be Muslim exist. It's literally in the Quran. It tells us that there are people in the world that are going to exist and they're not going to be Muslim, and we have to accept this, and we have to be okay with this. They're not, nobody is walking around a park, a playground, and walking up to a Muslim woman with her children and calling her an inseminated person. Nobody's doing that. It's legal language. And this level of hatred, this level of conservatism leaking into Islam, because yes, Islam can be considered a conservative religion, but it can also, in a lot of ways, be considered a liberal religion as well. But this level of American red pill conservatism that's leaking into Islam is what's leading into a lot of violence on Muslims. There was literally just a Sunni imam who was the first gay imam who was murdered. He was murdered. He was a religious leader, and he was trying to make a space for people to be Muslim when they are afflicted with, I don't want to say afflicted even, but when they are struggling with homosexuality, when they are living their lives as homosexuals, but still want to stay dedicated to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was murdered for this. And it's all because we're starting to turn parts of this religion from something that is loving and accepting and, something that is to take care of humanity, into something that is strict and conservative and hateful. And we are playing right into the hands of the Western propagandists who want to make us seem like these hateful, violent people. And that is not our religion. And feeding into this is going to be the downfall of us. Inclusivity is part of Islam. And if you can't see it that way, you need to study harder. I don't know.